Okay, to whoever is watching, this is just me and Dan hashing out our big board. We have not had any, we don't know the other person's rankings. So we're just going to go hash it out by each tier of the lottery. So we're going to go top 5, top 10, top 14. And then we're going to just talk about the guys we like and the guys we hate. So we're going to kick it off with my top 5. This is the official reveal. So I got Killian Hayes at 1. Point guard out of France, played in Germany last year for the 3rd Division European team out there. I got LaMelo Ball at 2, famous for the Ball family, Lonzo's brother, and more famously, LiAngelo's brother. And then at 3, I got Obi Toppin, redshirt sophomore out of Dayton. I believe he's 29 years old, so doesn't have a lot of growth there, but pretty good. At 4, I got Tyrese Halliburton. He's a point guard sophomore out of Iowa State. And then I got at 5, Deni Avdija, a 19-year-old point forward playing out of Israel. So that is my top 5. I know me and Dan have a disagreement at 1.
Nice. Yeah. Okay. Well, before we get into it, I'll go with mine. So as you already know, my number 1 is Obi Toppin, 22, almost 29 in a few years. In 7 years, he'll be at peak.
Because how tight
he'll be at his peak in 7 years at 29. Obi Toppin at number 1. Number 2, I have Killian Hayes. I'm also really high on him. Number 3 is LaMelo. Number 4 is Tyrese Halliburton, and number 5 is Anthony Edwards. Avdija did not quite crack my top 5, but he will be he'll be coming up quite soon. So yeah.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and do your full Obi Toppin explanation?
I will do
Just I want to hear it all. Everything you got about it.
Okay. Well, for anyone who is not aware, Obi Toppin is the Naismith Player of the Year. Is that good? Awarded to the best player in college basketball.
I think hasn't Frank Mason won that before?
I think he may have.
Just a reference.
Frank Mason was a senior. He was Obi's a sophomore. Granted, he's the age of a post grad, but he is a sophomore. What I love about Obi, the pick and roll potential is insane. He is so athletic. He reminds me a little bit of Zion almost when he catches lobs. He explodes to the basket off screen and rolls. He's a huge lob target. He's got long arms. 7'2". I've heard up to 7'2" and as low as 6'10" for his wingspan. So I don't really know what to make of that. But it's the measurements are unclear. We'll have to wait for the comment.
Well, we know it's not growing because he is well into his mature prime.
True. We know he's 22, so his wingspan isn't growing. I don't know when his birthday is. He could be. Wait, what do we put for the 22 point what? How old is he actually specifically? 22.2. Okay, so he's a young 22. Anyways, Obi Toppin, I think the offensive potential is immense. The thing for me that really stands out is, yes, the 22-year-old thing is not great. So you said he sat out. I'll just go into a little more about the player. He's a 4, really, like you could imagine him at small ball 5, but he's pretty much a power forward exclusively. He is so fast for a player that's as big and strong as he is. He great vertical, really agile, really fast open court runner. But the thing I like most about him, he's not just a dunker. He totally expanded his offensive game. So this is why I go into I wouldn't normally have a 22-year-old at the top of my board because, again, the perceived lack of upside. But guys do improve into their 20s. Obviously, we've seen guys like Draymond or like McCollum or Jimmy Butler come into the league well into their 20s and totally develop offensively. Like the all 3 of those guys I mentioned really were not of note at all when they first entered the league and just blossomed into all-stars. Obi Toppin averaged 14 points a game. He was a seldom discussed like spot starter his freshman year for Dayton. He just exploded this past season. He just started taking threes, and he was, I think, a 39% three-point shooter.
Yeah, he was right around 40% on like 3 attempts a game.
So a decent amount of attempts. He's a 70% free throw shooter, which isn't great, but it's pretty good. So he just started taking threes. He absolutely exploded his sophomore season. So his game is still, it's not like you're drafting like Tyler Hansbrough or a dude who's been the same player since he was like 15. Like he really just revolutionized his offensive game this past season. He was the best player in college basketball. And the defense is terrible. Like I've got nothing to say about that. He's going to be really bad. His hips really are just like made of steel. and he can't really turn them. He's not very quick. He's also underweight, so he's listed at 220, which is, for reference, what, like,
which is bizarre because like if you look at a picture of him, he looks like a solid 250, 260, and there's something about it. My theory is his pretty rounded shoulders, which make his arms look a lot bigger than they actually are. But he also has twig legs.
That could be true. His legs aren't great. It's really just his lower body profile is just not ideal in terms of functionality, weight, everything. But, you know, this is a draft with no flawless players, no even close to flawless players, and no really star prospects. So you got to live with the worst of all these prospects. I just think his offensive potential in pick and roll is insane because people are going to be anticipating lobs because he's such a vertical threat at the rim. But he's also going to be stepping out, hitting pick and pops. You can't leave him alone. And I just think pick and roll is like 50% of the NBA today. And I think offensively he can be unreal in pick and roll. I'm not comparing his full game to this guy at all, but I do think he can have some sort of Anthony Davis pick and pop vibe, where he's a threat to roll the basket, catch lobs, where he can also step out and drain mid-range jumpers. Again, just pick and roll, not the whole game. And maybe that was even a stretch. But Obi Toppin is my number one pick in a draft, again, that is full of guys. There are no guys without major flaws. I think his offensive upside is so appealing. And 22 thing doesn't worry me too much because his game clearly is still developing a lot. So that's why I like Obi Toppin at number one. Do you want to go into things you don't like about it?
Well, just for reference on this draft, there aren't any, arguably no great players, a lot of good players, but there's just no one that's gonna like
players with great skills, like individual traits. But
there's a world where I think there's a world where no one in this draft becomes an all-star. I think there's a world where that happens, but there's also a world where like 20 guys are contributing valuable minutes to a team.
Yeah, this could definitely be like a 2013 draft with no Giannis, basically.
So there's like maybe one like Oladipo there, but there's also potential for Anthony Bennett in top 5. Like it's just kind of all over the place.
Possible. It is.
So my primary and defense is not everything, and I think that offense has a lot more value in the modern NBA. But I don't think there's really a position that Obi Toppin can guard anywhere on the court.
You got PJ Tucker.
Okay, he guards PJ Tucker. He can stand down on the wing and like maybe bite on some help defense. But
he can.
So ideally I think he does play the small ball 5. Like that's the best scenario where he doesn't have to really shoot that much. Like it's not really something that he is tasked to do in terms of spreading the floor. But at the 4 in the modern NBA, you almost have to be able to really spread the floor, and that's not where he's at his strongest. It's rolling to the rim, getting near the rim. But so just going back to defense, as a small ball 5, he couldn't survive just because anyone bigger than him, anyone stronger than him is just going to absolutely obliterate him in the paint. He just has a really high center of gravity, can't rotate the hips, so any switch in the perimeter, he's just going to get eviscerated. I mean, the blow-by animations are going to be triggered. On the perimeter.
He does, I mean, like one sort of compensation is like he's got length and he can jump. So the recovery blocks will be on his side, sort of. But like NBA guards like know how to avoid those. Like that's
he doesn't have the greatest instincts either. Like on the defensive end, it's not there.
Defensively.
Yes, defensive instincts are not good. And effort is low, but effort's really hard to project from college to the NBA because he was carrying the entire offensive load. So it's kind of hard to project any effort there. But it's hard.
I will say though, can I cut in real fast?
Yeah.
Offensively, he is a guy where it's like the assist numbers aren't great. I think he averaged like 2.5 a game or something like that. But like from what I've seen on tape and from everything I've read, like he's a really smart offensive player who finds cutters and finds roll men and just like knows he's so good at dribble handoffs, which is like he just really knows how to find where defenses are soft. Like he's so effective in dribble handoffs in almost every way. Like he can fake dribble handoff and cut to the basket for a lob. He can pull out and knock down on like an 18-footer. And I just think he has those high IQ plays. He's really good in transition, but beyond just like being fast and athletic, like you have to be in transition. He's smart in transition, like knows how to fill lanes. Stuff like that bodes well for him to at least learn like how to it's like and I was gonna say Isaiah Thomas. That's not the company I wanted to be in. I don't know. There are guys like Steph. Okay, Steph, for instance, who's like Steph's a bad defender, but he's really smart enough to know how to not be an awful defender. Like he knows where to stand, like where to move. I have faith like Obi Toppin can at least do that. He's never gonna be like a talented defender, but at least he can like not be like just a pure liability. I think he could probably turn into that.
So, but can guys that are, let's say he's a 4, let's say he's a 4 in the NBA, can you have a 4 that is that type of defender, that type of like Steph that figures out where to do? Because like the 4, so I'm picturing, let's say you're playing the Celtics.
Okay.
Who in that, how does he fit in that defensive lineup? He's not covering Tatum. He's not great team defender, so he's not covering Tatum, Jalen, Gordon Hayward, Kemba. Is he covering Tice, and then you have the 5 on Tatum?
I mean, it really depends on. It depends on what team you're talking about and what their lineup is. But I mean, like, I don't know. I mean, if you Golden State is a bad example because they're so weird. But like, I don't know. I mean, let's say you slide him into like Cleveland. Oh God, no! I'm setting myself up for failure.
Put him at the 2. Kevin Love at the 3. Andre Drummond at the 4. Tristan Thompson at the 5.
Yeah,
big boy lineup.
To 6'8" to 6'10", and they can all almost shoot except for Tristan Thompson lineup. No way, Andre Drummond can't almost shoot either. They just none of them can rotate. Is what you're trying to say. Okay, if you slide him into like
spacing, everything in the paint.
Okay, if you slide him into like Atlanta per se, I don't know. You can't have Capella guarding any of those guys. I mean, like I've said this in the past, it's beyond just individual matchups. Like that's kind of how it starts. Yeah. It's like, for instance, in a screen and roll, it's like when you're playing 2K in a screen and roll, there's a decision like, am I going to go under? Or am I going to go over? In the NBA, you don't have to make that decision because there's hedge guys, there's guys rotate. So it's more complicated than that. But again, I mean, you don't want to start a game with a guy who's not sure who he guards. I do agree. There aren't many guys I can think of in the league right now that I would be confident matching up against. So that's not a great thing for your number 1 overall pick.
It's like immobile 4s that hover around the perimeter. Like it's PJ Tucker's. Like he can guard the PJ Tuckers.
He can guard like he guard Draymond. But like everyone
he can guard. He can guard. Draymond's planting and not moving. It's just like there's not. Yeah, and I think that poses a threat to how good he can be in the NBA, but offensively. Yeah. I mean, there's an argument that he can make the biggest impact on the offensive game in this draft. I mean,
he can do it right away too. Like he's like not a finished product. I think he's still getting better, but he was the best player in college basketball. Dayton was 29-2 at the season suspension. He was by far their best player. Like he was really phenomenal in this season. It was a real shame that he didn't get a March Madness run because I would have loved to see what they did. But yeah. So what was I gonna say? Again, I just want to reference again. He was not shooting threes until this season. This is his first year shooting threes, and he was shooting 40% from the field. It really bodes out. Like teams will not be able to leave him alone, and therefore he will be so like he'll be such a threat to cut baseline for lobs, take advantage of closeouts, stuff like that. I just think he can impact the game offensively in so many ways, but positionally he's not very versatile.
Did his free throw percentage improve from freshman year to sophomore year?
That's a good
I'm looking
question.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm clicking the link.
Okay.
I didn't know if you had it.
I think he was like pretty much just a 70% shooter.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, I mean, 70% is okay. You got to think like also there are not really college guys who are shooting like into the 90s, so it's like 75-80 is like a really good college three-point shooter or free throw shooter, at least like good, better than average. He was like a slightly above average free throw shooter in college, so it's like nothing crazy, but yeah.
And like there are 3-point shooters that are bad free throw shooters.
And obviously
LeBron. LeBron, Jaylen Brown until this year. Lonzo still can't make free throws at all.
Yeah, that's weird.
And he's
that's really strange.
He's around like 38% from 3. So
38, yeah.
I mean, because the free throw percentage correlates so heavily with 3-point percentage, you'd like that to be a lot better. But he clearly showed that he can make the 3. He can even make like an ISO bucket on the wing. Like there are a couple plays.
Yeah.
Particularly
he's like the behind the back sort of.
Yeah, against the Maui Invitational out in Maui against Kansas. Like there were some step back threes that looked like legitimate ISO scoring moves. Which
I will say though,
at 6'8" and big, like that's really impressive.
I will say in the same vein in that game, it was I mentioned this in the write up, but he was matched up against Udoka Azubuike. I don't know how to say it.
Azubuike. That's
you guys know what I'm talking about. Anyone who's tuning in. Anyways,
7-2 center from Kansas. That's the
yes, which was
that's who it
probably
is.
his hardest matchup of the season and like a legitimate center, and he was matched up against him. He got lit up. Like it wasn't close. Azubuike had 29, I think, and Dayton still won that game if I remember correctly. But
Yep.
it was bad, and he also didn't have a especially good game offensively either. So it's like I don't know. You never want to have to sort of compensate for your number one overall pick because you're going to sort of have to tweak game plans around him in some ways. And every team, as we'll get into later, every team drafting at the top of the lottery, like they're not a lot of blank slates. Like they already have stuff in place, except for like the Knicks, so or maybe the Pistons, arguably. So it's like you don't really want to draft a guy that you're going to have to make some exceptions for when you already have some infrastructure or like team personnel in place. But I think it's
odd.
for his offensive
It's like, as you've said, top 5 shouldn't be drafting for fit because it just means you're really shitty and you have to take the best player available. But of the bottom, 8 teams that might get the number 1 pick, they're finding a fit for Obi Toppin is hard. And then it should not only. I think the best fit is the Knicks. But if the Knicks are keeping their course of having 16 power forwards, like he doesn't actually.
He's
like
fit right in.
Yeah, but then it's like your starting lineup is Taj Gibson, Bobby Portis. You put Obi Toppin at the 3, like that's pathetic, and that completely hinders his entire development. That would be awful.
I have to get in here for sure. I have to get in here and talk about my hope that the Knicks draft LaMelo and then they form their starting lineup all 6'6" to 6'9" and can't really shoot starting lineup of Frank, LaMelo, RJ, Taj, and Bobby Portis, all 6'6" to 6'9", and none of them can shoot. It would be unbelievable. Oh my god, that's just basketball. Phil Jackson would be watching that. It's like expanding brain. Anyways,
maybe bring back a triangle offense.
That's exactly. One more thing too is that when you talk about guys not drafting for need, which I also agree, but that also like none of these guys are good enough, I don't think, where you should really restructure your whole roster around them unless you're a team like the Knicks who really has nothing in place. So it's like if you were drafting for fit, so like the Pelicans, for instance, Zion wasn't like the best fit because they had like Lonzo and Ingram who didn't really appear to be great shooters, but you just draft him and you figure it out. Whereas there's no guys like that where it's like you just take him and you figure it out because like there are so many guys that could be considered number 1. So like you can divert your choice to something that makes more sense. Anyways, I think we covered Obi. Do you want to get into Killian Hayes?
Yeah, absolutely.
Give me your pitch.
So with Obi Toppin, I think we talk about the pick and roll a lot, and I think that's also where Killian Hayes shines. But he's on the ball handler role. So he's a 6'4", 6'5", pretty long point guard. So first thing that stands out in the tape is the way that he is able to manipulate his defender to open up space for himself and to dish out on the drive. It's really hard to find 18-year-olds that can. I'm trying to picture what it looks like, but it's like a Kemba Walker or a Kyrie Irving. These are different players, but in terms of the way that they can get their defender behind them and then completely dictate the pace of that drive, that's what Killian Hayes can do at 18 years old. He's super left in a
professional league too.
Professional league, it's third tier. So this is not like Luka Doncic dominating EuroLeague. This is Euro Cup, which is the third tier down, and his team wasn't very good in Germany as well. But if you look at what he was able to do when he had the ball in his hands was really, really phenomenal. And there are very few players in this draft that are that mature with the ball in his hands, and he's one of the youngest. He's a really good shooter, great touch from the mid-range, great touch from 3. He's a little streaky, but once again, he's 18 years old. Through a crazy amount of attempts. So something, I don't know the exact number, but it's well over 200 attempts, free throw attempts. He shot 83% from the line. So, I mean, really, really good indicators of being able to hit consistently from 3. And he, throughout the year, he was adding step back moves, side step moves, stuff that, the best guards in the league can do. So James Harden, Luka Doncic, these ISO scoring moves that open up space and open up 3-point shots that he was able to do relatively consistently at 18 years old in a professional league.
D'Angelo Russell, your comp.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So the comp is D'Angelo Russell, and I think that it's really uncanny what they are both are on the court. D'Angelo Russell's lefty, Killian Hayes also a lefty. The stroke is unbelievably smooth. Killian Hayes gets rid of the ball incredibly fast, just as quickly in terms of shooting release, just as quickly as as D'Angelo Russell. Clearly can make ISO buckets and should develop that as he gets older, as he gets stronger. And he kind of adds vision where D'Angelo Russell doesn't really lean on that anymore. As a younger player, he's more of a playmaker, but Killian Hayes is that's really where he shines, which is the pick and roll and then finding really complex reads and getting into that second look like midair, which I think is what kind of like separates those like decent guards from the really good passing guards in this draft, like LaMelo Ball, Killian Hayes, is just making that second read where it's not telegraphing the pass to the corner. It's making the more complex reads, maybe a cutter from the left side when he was originally looking to the right. It's, I don't know, in a league that's becoming more and more guard/wing heavy, really relying on ISO scorers, I think that it's hard to project Obi Toppin as an ISO scorer. And I think that you can pretty easily project Killian Hayes as an ISO scorer in the D'Angelo Russell mold, which is not, you know, maybe he's an all-star, maybe multi-time, like that's probably his peak, multi-time all-star. He adds something that I think Obi Toppin just doesn't add, which is you can get the ball in his hands, clear everyone out, and something good is more likely than not to happen. So I guess what are you? What's your countering opinion on him?
No, I mean, I really like Killian Hayes too. I think you mentioned like the D'Angelo Russell, like young, like Ohio State D'Angelo Russell looked like Steve Nash. Like the stuff he was doing was unbelievable. There's that one pass that I will never forget against Northwestern where he had the ball out like this and then he whipped it like underhand bounce pass right into the paint and got like a perfect feed for his center for a layup. That was
not many people
like unreal vision. That. Anyways, I do. Go look it up. D'Angelo Russell pass against Northwestern. It might not yield any results. I also think coming over from Europe, like his instinct, I don't want to stereotype, but you would expect would be pass first, because just the amount of guys that come over from Europe with high IQs who are looking to pass and looking to create plays, it's just so disproportionate as opposed to the U.S. where that's not the case. You think about a guy like D'Angelo Russell played on a really bad Ohio State team and was kind of just doing everything himself. And so like coming into the league was obviously a huge adjustment. Like I don't remember, or D'Angelo Russell, he played Vermont Verde, so that's maybe not true, but just like I don't remember him being a huge high school name either. So it was like he really had to adjust to like not trying to do everything himself, basically, because like Ohio State, he was just doing everything himself. And he came into the league with the Lakers, and it's like, yeesh. But anyways, having to play with 38-year-old Kobe and Roy Hibbert. But anyways, my point being, no, I think Killian Hayes is really good too. He had some like lob feeds, like with guys that were cutting, and just like the way he sees the floor at 18 is really remarkable. The knocks against him, he's not like the athleticism really reminds me of D'Angelo Russell too, where you call him like a smooth athlete. He's not explosive really at all.
Correct.
The left hand dominant thing is like that's something that you think you could teach. I feel like it's not as commonly taught as we think, because it's kind of like it's beyond just like he's not confident with his right hand. It's like his game is really dependent on him only going left. So it's like he doesn't just have to like dribble more circles around his ankles right-handed. It's like he really has to like think about how to make his game three-dimensional on both sides, basically, which is like something that he's gonna have to learn. He's listed at 6'5". Like I believe him, but he looks like 6'2". Am I alone in this?
I definitely don't think he looks 6'2". Cause like Devon Dotson, who is we have I imagine super late in our boards. He's 6'2" out of Kansas, and like Killian Hayes is not 6'2". He is at least 6'4". Like he is a big. He's a relatively big guard.
Okay, yeah. I mean, just something about him on tape. He just doesn't look very big. But anyways, yeah. I mean, he's nice and quick. He has that like sort of like just really in control athleticism, where he's always going the exact speed he wants to go. Which again, you were talking about D'Angelo Russell, the same thing. My issue, I guess, for Killian Hayes is like this is a draft where I think I'm looking for guys who don't really need things built around them, and it's like I don't see where Killian Hayes can be super effective if he's not the lead guard. It's kind of like a D'Angelo Russell situation where it's sort of like he's too good and too ball dominant to be a second kind of tier guy or like a third best player on a team, but he's not good. You're not going to go to the finals with him as your best player, I don't think. So like I do question how he fits into a roster, but again, like I mean, a team like as a pseudo Pistons fan, I would be thrilled for them to get Killian Hayes. I think the Knicks should be considering Killian Hayes. Again, like I don't have a lot of bad things to say about him because I also think he's really good. I think Toppin's offensive ceiling is a little bit higher, but the vision at 18 is unreal. He's nice and like bulky. He's not like to compare to D'Angelo Russell, who was like really sort of lanky and like kind of was getting like knocked up, not knocked up, knocked around, and like getting these like little like sort of nagging injuries where he'd miss like 10 games here or there like his first few years. Killian Hayes is like nice and like built out already. Like he really just like, looks like a pro, and he's 18, which is cool.
And it's like
good.
serious development too. I mean, if you look at his stats, like there is legitimate improvement throughout the year and every year, which is something that you really want to see as an 18-year-old. I mean, it just across the board improvement means that like he's working on the stuff that he needs to work on. And obviously, I think, the stuff about the right hand, it seems like you just give them the ball and tell them to dribble a lot with the right hand. But like, obviously, that is super oversimplified and like not the case.
Also, I get, like at the end of the day, like players are going to play the way they want to. So it's like you can try and work on it. It's like if it's really a priority for him, like he's going to work on it. And like, I don't know anything about like his work ethic. I'm not going to speculate on it, but it's like, it's beyond just like, getting in the gym and like working on it. It's also like, it kind of reminds me, we can get into this later too. This isn't exactly the same thing, but when people are like, oh, once X develops a jump shot, he's going to be lights out. It's like, that doesn't just happen for everyone. It's like, look at Giannis. Like he's been in the league for 7 years and he's still shooting like he's better, but it's like, he's shooting 30% from three. It's like 7 or 6. I think it's 7, but, jumpers don't just like, it's not an assumed thing that guys will develop a jumper. So it's like a skill like a right hand. It's like, it seems obvious that it'll come. It doesn't always. So it's like, you hope it does. And he is someone who's like, so, like precocious and skilled at such a young age. Like you'd think that it will come, but you can't be sure. But anyways, I also really like Killian Hayes. Like he's really good. So I don't have a lot of bad things to say about him either.
Yeah, I think, these top two, I think they're both going to be really good players in the league and both make a big impact. How do we settle this? Like if
I mean, you have Toppin at 3.
I get Toppin at 3. Yeah, I'll put Toppin's definitely at least going to be top 2 because you got him at 1, so he'll be top 2. We're going to push LaMelo Ball at 3. We'll have a discussion about him, right? Because you have him at 3, I have him at 2.
I have LaMelo Ball at 3. Yeah. I mean, are we just averaging out our scores to find our final big board rankings, or are we going to have to like come to a consensus?
I think. I mean, I don't think we're going to come to a consensus on this number. On the big board.
We're not going to be swayed here. So we can just average them out, and then we'll see what we end up with.
So I think that puts us at Killian Hayes at 1.
Killian Hayes at 1.
Yeah. So
does that make Toppin at 2 then?
Yeah. Toppin at 2. Okay. Definitely.
Right.
And those are interchangeable. I just think the guard is what you said about him being ball dominant. I think it's just really hard to project secondary playmaking because all of these, in theory, most of these guys had the ball in their hand in college and weren't really weren't really put into the position where they had to just kind of keep the offense moving. So I think it's just hard to project secondary playmaking. And if he can't be a secondary playmaker, I think that you're right that that's going to limit. It's kind of going to limit the team he's on because he's not super athletic. He's not. His handle isn't incredible.
Secondary playmaking also like it comes down so much like what team you're on, how they move, how they run the offense. So it's like in like Golden State, for instance, like it would have been really interesting to see how that D'Angelo Russell thing worked if Steph were healthy, but that season just like became a wash immediately. So it's like that actually would have been really interesting to see because it's like the player comp who was forced to do a secondary playmaker role. But unfortunately, we never really got to see it. So
yeah, absolutely. So moving on to LaMelo Ball.
Yeah, you want me to get into LaMelo and then you'll take Haliburton?
You can go all in on LaMelo.
Okay, you're a big Haliburton guy. Okay, LaMelo at the beginning of this process, I was pretty sure I was going to put him number 1. He keeps me up at night. I think he, even more than Wiseman, I think he has the biggest range in this draft. I see a world in which he's the best passer in the league. He's going to walk into the league being like one of the 5 best passers in the NBA. And I really do see a world where he is like a less prolific version of Luka. Like that was my comp, like poor man's Luka. When I say poor man, I mean like poor, like legitimately poor man. Because I don't like his name, Luka. Exactly, because I don't like comparing guys who I'm not sure about to the best 20-year-old in the history of the sport. But I mean, just a quick rundown on LaMelo. I mean, so everyone knows who he is, but he is not like the frizzy-haired braces 130-pound kid that was shooting half-court shots at Chino Hills. He's a legitimate primary playmaker. He's about 1.8 now. He's 6'8". He's enormous. He's like Ben Simmons without the bulk. Basically,
so long. He is so long.
Yeah, what's his wingspan, like 6'10", 6'11", I think?
I mean, he's just like...
And so he's 18, so he might not even be done growing. He could be like 6'9", 6'10", like when he's done growing. He's huge. he is like a total ISO player. And while like, yes, he's a really good distributor, I wouldn't really call him pass first. I mentioned this in the write up. He's kind of like a Westbrook guy, where it's like, yeah, the fits are great, and his vision's better than Westbrook's, but he's higher IQ than Westbrook. But the entire offense is going through him, and it's been that way his whole life, except for when he was like a freshman at Chino Hills. So like, and the Illawarra team was terrible. I'll actually get in. Let me start with the pros first. His vision is unbelievable. His vision is the best in the draft, and it's not even close. He has some passes that I just don't even know how he saw. When he did that like tape breakdown with Mike Schmitz, there were times when Mike Schmitz literally sat there and he was like, I don't understand how you did that. Like he's literally like in awe of LaMelo Ball, this guy who spends like hours every day watching prospects. He was really like starstruck talking to LaMelo. His vision is just unbelievable, like absolutely stunning.
Just to cut in, I think
Yeah.
LaMelo's vision is it might be the only elite skill in this draft. And
yeah, I think so too. It's the best skill in the draft, by far.
It's the best skill in the draft. Like it is unbelievable. It's unbelievable how good he is at finding open guys.
Yeah, he's not a great athlete. He's like good enough. Like the most athletic play I saw him make was that, I don't know if you see that like one-handed putback dunk he had on the baseline. That was like he definitely showed the vertical. And so it's like he's packed on weight. He's still skinny. He's like 185, and for a guy who's 6'8", that's not gonna cut it. He needs to be like 195 probably. But he needs to bulk up a little more. But he's definitely bulked up a lot since like he was in a regular high school. And so the vision's insane. His handle is really good. The jumper is weird because obviously it's hideous. It's like a crime against humanity how ugly it is.
Could you replicate the motion just for the
sure viewer? It's like that, sort of.
It really looks like
how kids. It really looks like how kids, or it's a little more like forward like that, but it's like he uses. It really looks like how kids who've never been on a basketball team shoot a basketball. And so the splits are bad, but the free throws are good. He's like I think he's like a 75, 80% free throw shooter. So it's like he's a confident shooter, which is a good and a bad thing. Cause like the sort of consensus among scouts is his splits are bad because he doesn't know when to not shoot, which isn't necessarily better than not being able to shoot. But, you know, just for the full breakdown, like I think his splits are more product of shot selection than ability, because he's such a confident shooter. He does hit 30-footers, like he takes them. But again, it's not a good thing too, in the sense that his IQ is really bad and he almost just like gets lazy. And it's like, instead of moving the ball around, trying to find something better, find a better look for himself or his teammate, he'll kind of just chuck up like a really bad step back, and he's not that good of a shooter. So he shouldn't be shooting, you know, like he's Lillard or something. So that's not great. He also, I mean, I am really worried if he ends up on a team like Cleveland or something, where it's like, I'm worried for anyone who goes to Cleveland. He's never been not the centerpiece of his teams. Like he was playing for, you know, the Chino Hills teams, where after Lonzo left, he was the centerpiece. Then he went to Spire, and I can't really comment on that because he was in Lithuania, and the Lithuania thing was like all about him. And it kind of seemed to be the same way in Australia. The team was terrible. I think they went like 3-10 in the games he played or something like that. They were really bad, and he was like the centerpiece. And he put up like 17, 7, 7 per game at 18 in Australia. It's really impressive, but the team was awful, and they were losing games like 35, 40. Like if you saw the highlights, like the scores were ugly. So I don't really know what to think about that. He's really never played for a winning basketball team beyond the high school level. So like that's bad too. And like I mentioned earlier, he's pass first in the sense that his vision is transcendent. It is the best vision of any player in the draft. But he's pass first in the sense it's kind of like Rondo too, where it's like he's always looking to make a play. Like he's not letting the game come to him at all. He's really like trying to like impose his vision on the game. And so it's like his teammates always have to be ready for a pass, which is a good thing, but it's like the whole thing just runs through him. And it's like he's really ISO heavy, and so it's like he's pass first, but the passes will be at the end of like a long string of dribble moves and in and outs, and just like him holding the ball for a while. I don't know if guys will really love playing with him. I can't comment on like his personality or anything. I mean, I know he seemed kind of like a little brat, but he was also like 15, so we can't really hold that against him.
Alonzo's proved he's a good teammate despite the LeVar Ball stuff. So like, it's not like the Ball name is cursed someone to being a bad teammate.
No, for sure. But like Lonzo was also like really like a quiet, kind of like all business sort of guy, whereas LaMelo's like more of the showman. So like, I don't really want to get into the Lamar stuff. I think, you know, we all know about it. It's kind of whatever. It's played out. But yeah. So I worry if he goes. I don't really know if I see a good option for him, because if he goes to a team like Atlanta, or like, I don't even want to imagine that backcourt. Let's say he goes to a team.
No defense team. None of it.
Oh,
all guards.
Straight up. They're not having it. They're not having defense. Okay, let's say he goes to a team like the Bulls, that already has like not good infrastructure in place, but infrastructure nonetheless of team building, he's going to have to find a way to fit in. And if he goes to a team like New York that doesn't have anything, he's just going to be like screwing around, and I'm worried it'll just like ingrain his bad habits. So I don't know. That worries me a lot. I really do see like, I think his ceiling is perennial all-star. Like, I don't think he's ever gonna be a great scorer because he's not very athletic. He's not a good leaper. He plays below the rim. He's not very strong. He doesn't absorb contact. I think his scoring ceiling would be like 16, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
If to
with
try
like
to think of
probably
an
like
offensive
a few too many 3-pointers per game.
yeah,
like that's kind of the
16.
Yeah.
Like kind of like, not to compare the play styles, but sort of like a Wiggins offensive output, kind of like a guy who can score,
Yeah.
but you don't want him scoring that much probably because it means you don't have any better options. So I think his ceiling though is like perennial all-star, regularly leading the league in assists, almost like Rondo with better scoring, like a bigger version of Rondo. Maybe that should have been my comp, bigger Rajon Rondo. But that could be like his ceiling, where like he's like a transcendent lead playmaker, lead guard. I also think there's a world in which he's a complete bust, like just cannot be in the NBA because he's had such a weird upbringing. And that means, you know, the league won't be that much of like an adjustment for him. Like he's been a professional for a while, like he's been a celebrity. So like, but at the same time, like he's not very big. I'm kind of worried about injuries, especially when he sort of throws his body around. Like he's kind of like knock-kneed a little bit, for like, that's kind of like a weird term. But I don't know. Just like you see these guys who are just like these mixtape phenoms, and it's like, kind of like maybe a Tyreek Evans situation, for lack of a better comp, where it's just like guys who are so talented but just don't fit into a team setting. Like that happens. That's not like an inconceivable thing to think about. So it's like, I really do think he has the biggest output. I think he could be a franchise pillar, and like, I don't think you could ever win a finals building around him, but I think he could be like leading like really fun, like 48 win teams. But I also think there's a world in which he does not get like a second contract with the team who he gets drafted for. So like, I really don't know. I think the upside in a draft like this, you should probably gamble on it, especially if you're a team like Minnesota. But he can't play with D'Angelo Russell.
No,
so like, I don't know.
No, that can't work. Jesus,
Like,
the all miserable team. Just put LaMelo Ball in Minneapolis.
LaMelo Ball went from Lithuania, then back to Minneapolis.
Jesus.
Anyways, so yeah.
When I see him, even the passes are about him. Like it's
100%.
And it's all about him. Weird. It's all about him, no matter what happens. And when he dribbles, it's a lot like a 2K spam dribble. Like it's kind of like showing off, this is what I have, without actually a point. So it's the exact opposite. So the next person we're going to talk about is Tyrese Halliburton, but it's dribbling without a point, except
and he doesn't really seem to know like dribble. He doesn't really seem to know like where he wants to go with it. And it's kind of like he's just sort of like doing it on the fly. Which again, he's so good, he can get away with that, but he's not gonna be able to get away with that in the NBA.
Right.
So like,
I saw a clip. Yesterday where he was doing like the James Harden dribbling between his legs really quickly, back and forth crossovers as he was like walking up the court. And it got to the point where it was ridiculous. Like obviously there was no point to this, and it was like probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like probably like something about 15 crossovers, and then he just got his pocket picked, and it was like, oh, sick. Like these are some pretty sick crossovers. Like, yeah, this is awesome. This is fun to watch. But like, there wasn't any point to it. Like there wasn't. He got past the point of throwing his defender off, and the defender just read it super easily because all he was doing was showing off his dribble. It's a spam dribble, and like it doesn't work when you're not a Galaxy Opal 99 overall. Like
it does work when you're a Galaxy Opal 99 overall.
Exactly, but like LaMelo Ball is not a Galaxy Opal.
Dude, they're gonna release a moments card, Summer League. Anyways, I will say I think it was Aaron Brooks who was, for anyone who's not like just sort of like nothing to write home about, was an NBA veteran point guard in the league for like 8 years or something. But Aaron Brooks was his teammate in Australia, and he like spoke really highly of his work ethic and was like, I think he said like, I was expecting a Kardashian, but he was like here to work and like get better and stuff. That's a good sign. I mean, that's just what one man is saying, but you know, for what it's worth, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it. Super high ceiling, super low floor. So that's why we got in 3. It's pretty hard to. I mean, the ceiling puts him at 1, right? I think if we were just judging by ceiling, I would have him at 1.
Best case scenario for everyone, LaMelo is probably the best. Yeah.
Correct. Yep. So moving on to Tyrese Halliburton. So he is looking at tape, looking at his stat sheet, there's nothing that particularly jumps out about him. He's just really good at everything, and might be the only player in this top 10 range that I think improves and fits in perfectly with almost, I think, every team in the league. Every team could benefit from him. I think what impressed me the most, so I read a story about him at the U19 World Cup last summer, where he was playing with other elite prospects. So he was playing with Cade Cunningham, who's the #1 overall prospect of next year's class, which is supposed to be a lot better. He was playing with a couple, Kyra Lewis, who's another guy that I have around the lottery in this draft. He was playing with, who's the, wow, totally blanking. He was playing with a couple of other top five prospects from next year's class. And he played on that team. He played the most minutes. He had the most assists, most steals, highest 3-point percentage at like over a ludicrous like 60% on like 20 shots. Everything about him made him the most important player on that team that was filled with superstars, or future superstars. And that, I think, is a huge indicator of what he can be in the league, which is this perfect glue guy that doesn't need the ball in his hands. He has shown that he can be a secondary playmaker. He's not, if he's your best player, you aren't going far. There's some serious flaws to him. He's unbelievably skinny. I mean, he's 175, 6'5", which I mean is the skinniest guy in this draft, except for Alexei Pokusevsky, who is a literal alien. But his shooting form is just hideous. There's a huge hitch with there's a real duck when he shoots. He can't shoot on the move. He has to be standing still when he shoots. But he makes it rain. Like there's a lot of this. It looks bad, but he makes it work. He shot 40% on like 6 or 7 attempts a game. That's
his splits are unreal.
Yeah, the splits are unreal. He almost shot. I think his field goal percentage was around 50%, right? So around 50%.
He was like 50, 40, 80, right?
Yeah, it's ludicrous. Like the splits are fantastic, and it's because he's hyper efficient. And even on this team, he was scoring 14 points a game. He was putting up the most shots on this year's team versus last year's Iowa State team. But he was the man on this team without really making the team about himself, which I think is really impressive for a kid at a not a necessarily good college team. He's everything about it. He's the polar opposite of LaMelo Ball. I mean, his floor is really high. His ceiling is pretty low. He makes all the smart moves. He's going to be able to hit your knockdown threes. Doesn't take stupid shots. His vision is really good. I think right now it's probably as good as Killian Hayes. So it's top tier vision, but it's not really going to expand as much due to some serious athleticism concerns. What he can do off the dribble isn't that impressive. The handle isn't that great. ISO scoring isn't really in his future, but he makes smart cuts. I think what his peak and really his floor as well is, I think it's right around, between 10 and 15 points per game. He's going to make, 5 to 7 assists a game, make just really smart moves, not turn the ball over at all. And then his future as a defender, I think it really just hinges on whether he can beef up, because right now he is going to get back down on any switch. Like he can't, like I don't even want to picture him like getting switched onto LeBron and what he would do to him. Would just be
he's just a kid.
Catastrophic. Oh my God, it's just a kid.
That would be NSFW.
It would just God, he would just back him into like the 6th row of the Staples Center.
But into the tunnel.
Oh my God, it'd
be like that scene in The Blind Side where Mike Oher like learns to block and pushes the guy out of the stadium.
So he's a really smart team defender. He's super long. Wingspan's at like 6'10". He's 6'5". He can disrupt passing lanes. I think it's all there for him to be a really good defender, just really smart, and knows and great defensive awareness. He just, like, in terms of individual matchups, he's kind of gonna be obliterated for the most part. But as a team defender, he's gonna play his part and be a really good part of the team. And that's what that's what he is. For me, the perfect fit for him, Phoenix Suns, secondary playmaker. You don't have to take the ball out of Devin Booker's hand, but he can take the ball up. He can be that point guard, that facilitator.
Yeah. He could totally, if you want to keep Rubio too, he could play the 2 and you can push Booker down 3, and you just have like defense and versatility just everywhere. Yeah.
It's perfect. He doesn't need the ball in his hands to make a huge impact. And that, I mean, there are very few players at the top of this draft where you can say that. And just like, you plug him in wherever and he's going to figure it out and make positive contributions. He's not going to be a negative at any point in his NBA career.
No way. Yeah. There's like no shot he fails in the league. Like, he's just too smart and too skilled already, and just like has shown to be too valuable to teams. Yeah. Like, there's no world in which he isn't a rotation guy at the worst.
Yeah. And and as a top 5 like, I think in a typical draft, he's probably more around 10. But in this draft, there are very few sure bets, and to get one, I think in the top 5 is really valuable. And we both have him at 4 in our big board. He's not going to fail, and not failing at this, especially in this top 5. Any team would be lucky to have him. There's no bad fit, which is, totally. we talked about these first 3 players. They all have bad fits.
They do. Yeah, they're real concerns. Yep.
And there's no concern with Tyrese Haliburton.
For sure. I wanted to add a couple things. I think number one is, like, even if he doesn't beef up, which, like, I mean, he'll have to beef up at least like 10 pounds. So otherwise he's going to keep getting injured. But, like, I think it's safe to assume that'll happen at least a little bit. The switches won't be good, but he's still going to be able to guard point guards who don't use their bodies. I mean, if he's matched up against like Lowry or like Lillard or something like that, would be a problem. But I mean, he could guard, I'm trying to think, guys like Donovan Mitchell or like guys like D'Angelo Russell, for instance, just like guys who are more like speed, lateral movement. Like, he's really quick. He could totally guard guys like that. He's so long. So it's like, I already think there are good matchups for him in the league. I want to just draw attention to your comp of Shai Alexander. Like, I don't know if he's ever going to be quite the scorer like Alexander. I still don't. It doesn't make sense to me how Alexander scores like he does. I just don't get it. I remember listening to Bill Simmons say that he was not high on Shai Alexander at all coming into the draft. He was saying his sort of rule with point guards, or a rule that he had heard, was that they need to be able to either shoot the ball at an elite level or drive to the rim at an elite level. Otherwise, they won't really be able to score that much. And I don't really know if Shai does either exceptionally like well on tape, like in isolated plays. And yet he's scoring like 20 a game. Like I don't get it. Anyways, I really like the comp in the sense that Shai Alexander is a guy who, like, he was slid into that kind of weird in-between Clippers team where they're like, what is this team? Like, Tobias Harris is here. And they also had like Gallinari and Lou Williams. And it was just like, what's going on? And he found a way to be really effective and make them better. And then he goes to Oklahoma City and everyone's like, okay, well, someone's got to go. There's Chris Paul, there's him, there's Dennis Schroeder. And all of a sudden they're playing 3 point guard lineups, and it's working because you have players like Shai Alexander who just find out how to be effective and like don't need the ball in their hands all the time, aren't making it about themselves, will rotate, will make the right pass, will make open shots, and just like really know how to be effective. My issue with Haliburton is the splits are really good, but it's like historically the track record of guys coming into the league with those it looks weird but it works jump shots, it doesn't work. Like, they're always forced to change it. So like, obviously you think of Lonzo, you think of Ingram, who kind of had that weird like catapult thing that he had to switch.
Quickly, he doesn't, but he has the free throw percentage. That's the thing. Like, so Lonzo and Brandon Ingram did not have the free throw percentage to back up the 3-pointer that worked in college. And Tyrese Haliburton, like, he clearly has the touch, but he has the corresponding stats to back it up.
Why does he shoot the ball like that? It's so frustrating.
So hideous.
We're gonna have to throw a like a embedded GIF in the write up, because it's really like, it's almost hard to describe. It's like, I can't even do it. It's so weird.
It's slow. Anyways, it's jerky. He's not going to be like, he can't get the ball off quickly. Like, that's it really limits. He has to be, it's a catch and shoot, and it has to be open. Like, he's not going to be able to get a contested shot off because it's just going to be blocked.
Yeah, but this also, like, he's not, like, you would imagine, both because he's probably not going to be drafted top 3. And also, like, the idea of what we're describing of him as like a secondary playmaker, he's not going to be needing to create a ton of isolation offense either way. So it's like, that's not going to be super, like a big hindrance on his game, because he's going to be more about moving, making the right pass, making cuts. I don't really recall from his tape, but I have to imagine he's a great cutter, from what I can remember at least. Just because guys like that know how to cut, they know how to get to the basket. Yeah.
Yeah. This year he had the ball in his hand so often. I don't think that was really called of him, but like, I don't know, like, everything about him, he's going to be smart on both ends of the court.
Yeah,
he's gonna add value.
for sure. You want to move on?
Yeah. Did you have Denny at 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Anthony,
do you want me to talk about Edwards, or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm good with Edwards being at 5.
Okay.
Like I'm
Yeah.
not. These two are, I think, are very, in terms of like
Yeah.
both have
So,
bad splits, but they look great on tape. Like it's the same.
We're both not as high on Edwards as a lot of people are. I mean, Edwards is going number 1 in a lot of mocks. He's the most talented player in the draft, I would say. Is that even a question? I think so.
I think he's most athletically gifted. I think that's how.
Yeah, he's the most gifted player in the draft. Maybe you could say.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, okay, so I can't imagine anyone who would be listening to this hasn't seen Anthony Edwards, but in case there is, really ball dominant, kind of like, if you think maybe like, kind of reminds you of college Wiggins, but as a shooting guard, running back type athlete, like just so big. His shoulders are huge. He's really fast. He's a crazy leaper. He weighs 220. He weighs as much as Obi Toppin, which is insane. He's like 6'5". He's got I think he has a 6'10" wingspan. He's such a good. He's the best athlete in the draft, I would say. He's like has really good functional NBA athleticism. He's not just like a like a Terrence Ferguson type like pogo stick leaper. Like he is like really just like powerful, fast, strong. Can use his athleticism in every facet of the game. He was so hot and cold. So it's like the reason I'm a huge Avdija fan, as I will get into. I've been so high on Denny for this whole process. I think Denny's stealing is really, really great. I couldn't put him over Edwards just because the statistical output is it's not comparable. Edwards, I think the reason I have him at 5 as opposed to Denny at 5 is that I think if neither player develops really much at all, I think Edwards is the much better player. Edwards right now is a really inefficient volume scorer, as our comp was like Super Saiyan Dion Waiters. He really does. He kind of looks like a Dion Waiters, but if you replace the fat with muscle, he's like a jacked version of Dion Waiters. He's like Pack-a-Punch to Dion Waiters. He has like these step backs and these dribble combinations that are so smooth. He pulls up in a step back that looks so good. His shooting motion is good up top. Like the follow through is good. His feet are terrible. He's always like moving the wrong way, like kicking his legs out, or just like he's so unpolished, but beyond just like he's unpolished from like a mental standpoint where it's like he doesn't really look like he knows how to play effective team basketball, which is beyond like he needs like, to learn how to follow through with his jump shot better. Like he needs to learn how to like cut off screens better. It's like he has a fundamental lack of understanding of 5-on-5 offense, I think. And so like that's a really big issue. I think there's not bust potential because it's like, especially in a draft where you're not going to be passing up any surefire stars even if he goes 1. Like worst case scenario, I mean, like he's going to score 18 points a game in the league. Like he's just too good to not be at least a decent scorer in the NBA. I do think if he doesn't develop, he's going to be kind of like a Wiggins, like a Dion Waiters situation where like he can score, but if he's scoring, it probably means you don't have better options and it means your team isn't very good. I look at the fits. I don't see where he goes. There's not a single team I like his fit. It's kind of like the LaMelo Ball situation where it's like, I don't like the idea of him going to the Knicks and just shooting 25 times a game and not really learning anything. But I also don't like the idea of him and Trae Young sharing a backcourt and like seeing who could shoot more. So like, and also like the tools are all there for him to be a great defender, but that doesn't necessarily mean he will be. Like the tools are there for like Westbrook to be a great defender and he's not. The tools are all there for like, I can't think of another example for that matter. Westbrook is always my go-to, where it's like just because you're a really fast and strong guard does not mean you're a good defender. There's so much more that goes into it. And right now he's not a good defender. His shot selection is terrible. I mentioned this. No, I didn't do the write-up on Edwards actually. I really don't like seeing guys who are top recruits go to bad basketball programs. Like I thought of Ben Simmons at LSU, Fultz at Washington, just like that was a bad Georgia team. I think they went, what was their conference record? It was like 10-12 or something. It was not very good.
Oh no, worse than that.
It was worse.
It was like 4 wins. They were horrible.
Okay, so it's like he's going to a bad Georgia team. And again, I mean, like it's his life. He can do whatever the hell he wants. Like, I mean, obviously more power to him if he decides where he wanted to play his season. But like, I just don't think you develop very much playing for a team that doesn't really know how to use a player as good as you. So it's like, as a player of that level. So it's like he went to Georgia. He was by far the best player. He shot a ton. He had some incredible, like the 37 points against Michigan State was unbelievable. He was the best player in the country. Like at times he looked like it, but then there were also times where he was shooting like 3 of 15 and like they were losing games to like Vanderbilt. So like, I don't know. He became like a one-man army in the worst way where I feel like he really lost a really key developmental year. had he gone to, a more traditional choice, or played overseas where he would learn to actually play with some other players that approach his skill level. So the reason I haven't loved Denny, and I'm a huge Denny fan, as I will go into later, but I just think the ceiling is so high. Like, he might be one of those weird guys like a Donovan Mitchell where he's not good enough to be a 1, but he's a little too good and ball dominant to be a 2. But I do think the ceiling is like an Oladipo, Donovan Mitchell type, like really just like certified bucket on the wing. But the odds he gets there, I don't think are very good because his basketball IQ is not good. Like, he's not a guy where you think about like Donovan Mitchell, who again, like no one saw Donovan Mitchell coming, but he came into the league and 8 months later was outplaying Westbrook in the playoffs. That's not happening with Anthony Edwards. Like, there's no world in which Anthony Edwards is an efficient, good scorer for at least like 2 years. So, like, I think the ceiling is really intriguing. I think he's the most gifted player in the draft. And so I really couldn't justify putting him over Denny just because he is currently a more talented player and would have more success in an NBA game today than Avdija would be. But I also think the odds that Avdija develops into a really key piece of a franchise might be higher. So I have him at 5, and I'm not super confident about it.
I think he just really stunted his development by going to Georgia. Like, I think he just like he was there just playing iso ball, just jacking the ball up. Like,
really just chucking. Yeah.
Looking at his game logs, like, they're really abysmal. He was like a 32% 3-point shooter that was putting up. There was a span where he went 3 for 10, 3 for 12, 4 for 12 from 3. Like, if you're shooting 30%, you should not be putting up those shots. And when you're 225, 6'5", and the best athlete in college basketball, get to the fucking rim. Like, he showed that he could bully ball anyone
in the SEC that was going to stop him.
That's also when you're playing for a team like Georgia, sometimes you have to just sort of go nuts and like go away from ball because who else is going to do it? So, like,
all right,
you got to.
Mike.
No, you're good. Oh, corded. Look at that. You just had those on lock. Anyways, so I mean, if he's playing for a team like Georgia, like sometimes he's gonna have to do that. It really reminds me so much of Fultz at Washington. It's like that Washington team won 9 games, and I was like, what are you even doing there? Like, you're not getting better. It seemed like a waste of his time.
Yeah, and like there wasn't really showing much improvement throughout the year. His final 3 games, he went 3 for 10 against Florida, 6 for 22 against LSU, and in the conference tourney he went 2 for 13, 1 for 9 from 3, and against LSU he went 1 for 12 from 3. Like, there's just like this
12 from 3.
12. He took 1 for 12. Like, it just doesn't make any. The game logs just. I mean, the raw stats are fine, but
he peaked at the Maui Invitational, which was like the 5th game. I guess we should say that was the best game, but that was like that was the beginning of the year.
19 years old, an entire college season, he was able to get 32 games under his belt. Like, you'd hope that there'd be some improvement there, but just none.
Yeah.
The team got worse too. I don't know. It's just like he's the classic. Like, you're drafting on the attributes. Like, he's in. Like, he's the I'm trying to think of like other guys. It's the Andrew Wiggins. It's the Nasir Littles. It's just like you have all of this potential there. You're just drafting on potential because watch him play. If he plays like that in an NBA team, he ruins the team. Like, he does.
They don't. And it's like you're drafting right now. It's like you're really, really drafting the tools where it's like an NBA team does not want Anthony Edwards, the player, to play for them right now. Because if he's playing big minutes, it means they don't have any scorers. It's like he's really just doing like a really, really, really inefficient version of what like Donovan Mitchell does, which is already pretty inefficient. So, like, it's there are concerns for sure. The more I talk about it, the more I kind of think I should have Denny over him. But
So I think we can move on to Denny.
Denny.
I'll just quickly, you can do most of Denny, but I'll just quickly preface.
Okay.
So 6'9" point forward out of Israel. What the tape, I think, is arguably the best tape in this draft. Like, his highlights are next level.
Unreal.
Vision, the athleticism, his shot looks good. Everything about him looks great. Let me pull up the stats just so we can.
You have to do that.
They're the worst stats
fine.
in this draft as well, which is this super weird.
They're pretty bad.
Conundrum. I mean, the playmaking is next level. Like, it makes him look like a Ben Simmons almost. Like, he
looks like skinny Ben Simmons. He really does. He kind of looks like Luka.
So his stats: 26 games in EuroLeague at 14 minutes per game. He shot 27% from 3. 60% from 60% from 2, but 56% from the free throw line, with 1.2 assists per game, 2.6 rebounds, and 4 points per game. It's
It's bad.
the shoot, and there's no reason to believe that the shooting's going to get better either. Which is there's no statistical basis for that
Yeah.
shooting to get better, which is really
If you watch
concerning.
him, he's at least a confident shooter. You can say that. He's not like a Michael Kidd-Gilchrist who's like terrified of the 3-point line.
Yeah, he shoots, but like there's no success there, and you're really it's hard to project him as I think he'll be good regardless. No, he'll be fine regardless. But if there's no respect in the 3-point line, it's
Yeah.
really hard to project him as being a good role player, I want to say.
Yeah, I don't really know what his comp like. If his jumper doesn't develop, I don't know what his comp is because like I comped him to Gordon Hayward, but that might be a little generous because Hayward's a good like a well above average shooter. He's a really good shooter. And like I also comped him to skinny Ben Simmons, but he's nowhere near the athlete Ben Simmons is, and he's not the defender that Ben Simmons is. So like it's just the one skill is the passing, the transition play, like how he can take the ball coast to coast. So it's like he really does have a few transcendent skills, but those are skills that in isolation aren't really that effective because you can't isolate them. So it's like, it's not like a guy like Neesmith, for example, we'll get into later, where it's like, all he does is shoot. But it doesn't matter if all you do is shoot because it's like, you can just stand in the corner and shoot the whole game. Like there are players who do that. There really aren't players who all they do is distribute. Like even the guys like Rubio who aren't like great scorers can still make an open three or get to the line and like make shots there. Like I really don't know what he would be. He's like an Evan Turner kind of maybe if his jumper doesn't develop.
Yeah, I think in terms of what his role, I think it is that. I mean, it's his ceiling is severely limited without a shot, severely limited. Just because,
Yeah,
I mean, it's
honestly
like, so like Ben Simmons gets zero respect from the 3-point line, but is able to do stuff because he's a great distributor and a phenomenal finisher at the rim. But
well, no, I mean, yeah, he's just like a crazy,
crazy
full-on
athlete, crazy
Yeah,
athlete.
yeah.
But if Denny comes in, can't shoot, and great distributor, then it's like,
yeah,
you're like modern day Rajon Rondo, like much bigger. But like I don't know what, like I just picturing the fit. He can't be a small. I don't picture him as a small ball 5. There isn't much pick and roll potential there. He would be the ball handler if he
couldn't guard a center. Like
no, he couldn't.
And I know
he couldn't.
Guarding a center is like kind of I sound like I'm talking in 2012, but like he couldn't guard to think of like a real scenario. Like he even couldn't guard a guy like he's not big enough to guard a guy like Tatum. Even like he's not strong enough yet. So like he weighs like 215 I think he weighs. I can look into it.
Which isn't like that's not debilitatingly skinny. Like there's something there.
Yeah, that's not terrible.
He
weighs 219. Okay, so he weighs he's like a Kuzma body.
Yeah, I think that's a good comp. And maybe that's well, no, Kuzma can't really pass. So that's
no, and Kuzma can shoot.
Yeah, well, kind of shoot, but that's the thing. Like Kuzma's like a 33, 34%.
He can like kind of shoot. Yeah. I'll just go into really quick. We got to start moving along a little quicker, but
yeah. I think after this we take a break because it turns out I do have the upgraded Zoom, so this is just
nice. Yeah. FD's tape is unreal. It's absolutely unreal. I recommend
that. That's a tape you should watch. Watch his switch.
I was watching Avdia, and this was like early in the process. He was like the second guy I watched, and I was watching him, and I was like, "Am I watching Ben Simmons who can also shoot?" Like it was unbelievable. The way he takes a rebound and goes coast to coast, he literally looks like Magic Johnson. It's unreal. It's like his vision is almost as good as LaMelo's, but it's not like one-handed, like no look passes. It's just like he's making the right play every time. So he's finding cutters. He's doing where he jumps into a layup and then finds a guy on the opposing baseline. He's doing perfect pick and roll feeds. He's hitting step back jumpers, which they look good on tape, and his follow through is good. Like his motion isn't that bad, but it's just the results aren't there. And so like he really does look like the perfect modern positionless player where he can distribute, he can run offense, he can make shots, he can he's got a handle, he's got a couple moves. Really, just the tape is unbelievable. And then I look at the stats and I was like, wait, what? And so it's like drafting him, you're almost just like hoping that he develops a jump shot. You can't count on it because like there's no reason statistically to believe he can do it. The only things he has going for him is A, the form doesn't look bad, and B, he has confidence in his shot. He takes 3-pointers all the time.
Young too.
So
he's young.
He's really young. He's
19
in
college.
And he hasn't played that much high level basketball. He's not one of these guys like Alexei Poyevsky, right?
Yeah,
Poyevsky, who has played like 10 games against like a high school JV team. He has like some experience, but he hasn't played a ton. So he's
Played
not like
371 minutes.
okay. So
Yeah,
he's played
in the
a little bit.
EuroLeague.
Yeah, he's also played in the Israel League, so he's got some time. But it's tough.
You're drafting on what he looks like. That's the tape. So
I also do think like I don't think he can step in and really play a role for a good team right now. He's going to need at least like a year of like second unit reps, maybe some G League, maybe even I don't think he can draft and stash him, but like yeah, he's going to need more time. Like he hasn't played a lot of high level basketball. He was like I would imagine like the 12th man on his on when Maccabi was playing in EuroLeague. So like he needs more seasoning, and the jumper just like if the jumper comes, I think he could be an all-star. Like I think he could be so good. But the jumper coming, you're honestly just crossing your fingers because there's nothing really that makes you reasonably think it will happen.
I kind of want him to get on, like this won't happen because, well, most likely won't happen. But if he was to get on Pelicans and you get that shooting coach that has just absolutely transformed Brandon Ingram and Lonzo Ball, if you get that same transformation,
interesting,
you have like two elite playmakers. And if he could actually shoot, like he would have to be able to make a Brandon Ingram type blossom into a good free throw shooter, good 3-point shooter. But if that were to happen, oh my God, the mega lineup: Lonzo Ball,
injected straight in,
Brandon Ingram, Denny,
oh my
Zion.
That's the new lineup. Oh my God,
that's the lineup.
He's really switchable defensively too. Like he can guard 2 through 4 defensively.
Yeah, he's
We're
fine.
not big fours. Like he couldn't guard like Derek Favors or something, but Derek Favors doesn't score. It doesn't matter.
If Derek Favors is beating your team, you're fine.
That's fine. Anyways, all right. Well, cool. So those are our top 5, 6. Yeah, I'll take a quick break and we
top. And I think that these 6 I think are in.
I like the cutoff.
These are the top 6, and they're the best prospects in this draft. And there's good separation between 6 and 7.
All right, take a quick break. We'll get back into it.